Welcome back to the Travsessed podcast. We're your hosts, Kim and Aaron. We are healthcare travelers and the creators of Travsessed. And usually on Tuesdays is our traveler quick tip, but this is our 200th episode. So
Which is crazy.
We wanted to release like a real episode. And so we're going to flip-flop them this week. And so Tuesday will be our long-winded episode, 200th episode celebration, and Thursday will be our traveler quick tip. So let's get into the 200th episode of the Travsessed Freedom and Scrubs en route Gap Travel
Kim and Aaron
Unplugged podcast.
Flight crew, please prepare for departure.
I'm putting this in there.
200th episode, man.
Whew.
It's like, because like, so it's Sunday. We were sitting here talking. We're like, okay, cool. Like, what do you want to do the traveler quick tip this week? And then Aaron was like, well, the next episode is our 200th episode. So like, I don't want it to be a quick tip. I want it to be like us like sharing about that 200th episode. I'm like,
or making it a cool episode.
Well, yeah,
right?
like not just like sharing about it,
right.
but just like, yeah, like I just can't believe it's been 200 episodes.
So we were talking about it, and Kim's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, we should do like what we've learned from this podcast. And she thought I meant like asking you all, the listeners, like
so
what you
lame.
learned. And I'm like, what? Then we would just sit there and like wait for you guys to respond.
Or like write in to like tell us what you've learned. I'm like, that is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right into what?
I don't know. Her Instagram. Tell us what you've learned, guys.
We're recording this on Sunday. How would we do that?
Right.
Anyway.
Not that we'd be waiting for responses, but that you would tell them to write in what they've learned from it. And I'm like, that's so lame.
Okay, I get it.
But it's just crazy because we started this podcast in Oroville, California back in 2019. So it was before the pandemic.
Was it 2019?
Yeah, because we were getting ready to leave for our year of travel when we went to New Zealand, and then the pandemic happened. Because the reason why we wanted to even start a podcast was because, you know, we had Traveler School, which is our course for travelers, and we would go live and we would teach about, you know, healthcare traveling and the logistics and what to know and how to get started and, you know, all of that. And we were like, dude, we want a place to be able to like share about like behind the scenes, like the lifestyle, like funny stories or like things going on and
things we've learned,
like a place that we could actually just like talk and share like candidly instead of, because like when you're on a live stream, you're not just sitting there like talking candidly, like we're teaching something. It's like
there's
a different type of vibe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like that would be so cool if we had like a podcast where we could do like behind the scenes stuff as like our life as travelers.
Well, also, like, we used to always do Gibson Soul Sunday where we would watch a podcast and then you and I would sit for hours and just talk about what came up and, like, different views and how we've, like, changed the views of, like, how we even, like, thought of, like, what we learned from that podcast. And I just remember thinking, like, those are such cool conversations and those are conversations that I like to have, and maybe we could incorporate that into a podcast, which we never did.
No,
because it's like really not that right.
Yeah,
it's for us.
It's like
but
no one cares.
That was like my whole
about our philosophy.
But it was mainly about just having an outlet to chat.
Yeah. Well, because we love to talk, we love to tell stories, and like people would always say that, you know, with our live videos and even in our course, like you guys are so you're fun and you're entertaining in the way you teach, because from the beginning, even when we're teaching something like a bill rate or something boring, we've always incorporated our own personal stories because we feel like that's what always entertains
100%.
us, and what I feel like makes things like stick and makes things digestible and relative and stuff. And so people would always say that, and like we're like, our favorite part about anything we do is like we like to tell stories, we like to share behind the scenes, and where can we do that? And we tried to do that on YouTube, and that was a freaking disaster. We're like, let's tell our whole life story, like one episode at a time on YouTube. And like, again,
It would have been such a good podcast.
oh my gosh, like the best podcast. It actually did decent on YouTube.
It did.
Like we would have like thousands of views on that, which is so funny.
Well, it's so cringeworthy that I just took
can't
them
even
off.
think
But
about
it
it.
was the titles. The titles were captivating. Like Kim's a total mess, or like something like she's a psycho.
Yeah.
Mr. Grinch.
Usually stop. So then the podcast was like, oh, that could be the cool place that we could do that. I do think we leaned into the YouTube thing for so long because we like video. I think video is fun, and I think we're good on camera, and so we're like, that could be the place. But like, that's not the what's the word?
Platform?
Yeah, to do long face to camera kind of stuff, right? We were like, sit down for 2 hours and listen to us talk. Oh my God, like so freaking
No change
cringe.
in the camera, just straight sitting in a...
With me riding your
yeah.
back. Like, I just can't. Like,
No.
you'd be like tickling me in the woods. We're like, ooh, this will be like funny.
Buddy, that was our Amazing Race videos.
I feel like there was some tickling with our
Amazing
story too.
Race.
Like you would come out of the woods and like scare me and be like, ooh, that's
Amazing
great
Race.
content. Okay. So
Which is why we've never been picked.
So embarrassing to think about.
I can't even.
That's like a story all on its own, our
Oh my
Amazing
God.
Race. Our submissions. I feel like we should try again, which we've never given up hope. And even when we went to, like, going on the Amazing Race has been a dream of ours. And when we were at your aunt uncle's for Thanksgiving, even Jen said, like, you guys should apply again. Like, you would be so incredible. And I really believe that we could do it.
Totally.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. So then also we were planning to travel for the year.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're jumping ahead.
Where am I going?
I was just saying, like, just kind of staying on the fact of, like, in Oroville, California, we started this podcast. Like, we watched a podcast course. We got so excited.
We got our mic.
We had mics. One mic that we were sharing that never worked. Like,
Yep.
it was. I remember sitting in that back room, and we recorded 5 episodes before we released, and it was like so exciting. And I remember I don't know. I remember feeling like, wow, this could be so cool.
Yeah.
You know, and like really excited for the direction it could go.
Yeah.
And I think the podcast has been the one thing, it is the one thing, besides our Facebook group, that we have continued, and it is kind of molded with us.
Well, yeah, because we like it. Like, again, the interesting thing is too, it's a labor of love, right? Like, we've done it now 200 episodes. We've never had a sponsor.
Mm-mm.
And it's just something we've never looked at. Like, we did once with like a travel company. Remember?
No,
Well, it was Wanderly.
we never got paid for it.
No, we decided not to do it. They were going to pay us.
Oh,
And then, like, you know, I've thought about over the years of like, oh, well, maybe we could get like a travel company, like an AMN or like somebody we work with to come in and they could sponsor. Cause like essentially like a podcast, that's how you make money, right? Like you have sponsorships and that's how and you get money. And then we just never really felt drawn in that to go that route. Like it just kind of like, I don't know. Like we'd go back and forth and we just kind of let it go. Like we never pursued it. We never tried it. And the cool thing is that we've built such a beautiful community with our podcast. They're like our ride or dies that our podcast, like majority of people who come on our adventure trips, who've bought our course, who've like bought a backpack, like anything that we've sold, that we've created ourselves, like we've almost like we've been the sponsor, right? Mm-hmm. And like we've like talked about things that we've had going on that we wanted to share with the community. And honestly, that's where all of our sales have come from, is like people who listen to this podcast. Because I think when you like listen to a podcast or you watch YouTube or whatever, you feel more of a connection. You're hearing people's lives and their stories. And I think this is the place that you and I are the most honest and candid, because it's a place that we can just shoot the shit and like be ourselves. So it's just interesting. And that might change. Like we might decide to get a sponsor one day. We might like look into what that could be. Like we just haven't really put the energy into it. But I love that we've built this tight-knit community, and we've been supported doing this podcast through other avenues of things that we've loved to do because our listeners show up and like support us in other ways. And I just think that's really cool, like that it went that way.
No, totally. I agree. And I mean, there's just like so much to that. I mean, I'm just like really thinking back of like all the changes we made to it and like how we've kind of had different names, and we'd go out for walks and get excited about different directions that we would want to go with the podcast. And like, it's just always been ever changing, but it's always been the same of you and I just like popping on and sharing about what's going on currently and telling stories. And we've had some cringe moments, I think, in a way of like, not really cringe moments, but like really looking at it from experimental. I think it's been really cool to experiment, to see what clicks, what doesn't, what feels good for us. And I just think it's really cool. Like you said, the close-knit group has stuck with us throughout that, right?
100%.
Every change, every name change, every new idea, every crazy like little experimental thing, this community is stuck together, and it's been really cool. It's been fun, and it's been something that I have enjoyed doing as much as we have.
Yeah, and that's why we keep doing it, you know. And I love being able just to like connect with our community and share things that we're like, you know. And I was even like talking to my sister about this because we were talking about how fake Instagram is, right? And like, especially all the things that you can do now with pictures and this, that, but even just like people's stories and stuff, like how again, like you're not really getting a full picture, right? Like and we try to be as real and transparent as we can, but nobody's like picking up a camera. You and I are in a fight and I'm like, tell Insta story what's going on. Like right. Nobody's doing that. Like that is just the nature of social media. Like you try to share and be as transparent as possible and never try to pretend things are away when they're not. And like I hate that about social media because I do think we're all comparing ourselves to other people's highlight reels of like, look at my Sunday. I woke up and I had a great workout, and then me and my boyfriend went on a picnic and he surprised me with a trip to Paris. Like, of course, like everyone's sharing their greatest moments, right? Like that's just the way it's designed.
It's a highlight reel.
Yeah, but I said to my sister, I said, what I love though is that our podcast is where we can really share behind the scenes of like, hey, like we're really struggling with this right now, or this is what's really going on, or, you know, like we were able to share more of us and like behind the scenes of long form, like story form of, hey, it may look like this is what's going on Instagram or here, but I feel like people who listen to our podcast really, like we share real stuff. Like we never sugarcoat things or try to like, I feel like we share the truth of kind of what we're going through.
I mean, within a range, do you really feel like we're completely transparent, or is there things that it's still, I don't know how to word that. Like, I think, yes, I see what you're saying about Instagram and like it's a highlight reel and it's this whole thing. And, you know, I think people who, I mean, we're not that important, but it's like one of those things that if people actually picked up a pattern, like your mom knows, like your mom will be like, is everything okay? I haven't seen you on the story. Mm-hmm. And you're like, nah, we're just kind of like not really feeling it. And there's some things going on and we just don't really feel like posting. Like you and I aren't going to post on social when we're like going through something,
where you
right?
Just feel burnout. I think, I feel like we're very honest
100%.
on our podcast. But that being said, I don't care who you are. Like I'm not sharing every facet of my entire life. Like there's things that are for you and I. There's things
Agreed.
that you and I talk about or we go through or like that, like we keep, like I feel like we're very open and honest. We always have been since we decided we wanted to start like teaching about traveling and stuff. I feel like we're very transparent and there's not too many things I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. Like I'm pretty much an open book, but there are obviously things that are just for you and I don't feel the need to have to share every fucking thought or everything that comes up in our life with everyone else. So
I agree.
I don't think that's normal or healthy. I think even the most public people, they share so much, but they keep certain things that are just for them.
Well, I would agree, and I think we do a good job of that. Of like whether we had a crazy idea that didn't pan out or whatever, like we're open to talk about it and be transparent.
Well, yeah, because
with.
you just said you don't know if we're as transparent as you think. Like I'm saying.
No, I was just like wondering because I've always wondered what that is, right? And I think you worded it well, and I think even the most, like you said, public and famous podcasters, you still have to keep shit to your, like you have your own life, like you're not airing out all of your laundry, like
every aspect of every detail of everything,
right.
Even though I do feel like we do quite a bit, but
right. I just know personally I do learn the best, and I do think people learn the best whenever they're like, wow, they made that mistake, like, and they learned from it and they grew from it. And I think we do a good job of that within relevance to what we talk about.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
And I mean, I don't think we're ever shy about talking about relationship things that we've gone through and things like that, and like how we moved through that. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Interesting. But what I was saying is like, I think that's where the podcast comes into play, is like, it is a place that I feel like we feel more safe and vulnerable, and that we can be more open and share more of a bigger picture than you're ever going to be able to do on an Instagram, on a TikTok, even a YouTube. I think because it's YouTube videos are curated and different things, but so I really enjoyed that. Like I look forward to like getting on the mic and like sharing every week. I mean, honestly, if we're being real, like, yeah, like we've gone up and down with this podcast because we're like, dude, like there's nothing to freaking talk about. I have nothing to say. And so I think because this podcast hasn't necessarily had like a theme where like, oh, this is the podcast we talk about sex and relationships. This is the podcast we talk about, travel hacking, or, it's like we've never had a very specific
healthcare traveler tips.
Yeah. Like it's more about like our lifestyle as Kim and Aaron going through and living this life as travelers. And, we talk about our life a lot. And so sometimes we're just like, dude, like I don't really have anything to say. There's nothing that I think is that interesting, or like so it's like I think we've gone up and down about that, of just like, what are we even going to fucking talk about? And,
I mean, as podcasts go, I mean, yes, we've gone, I think the longest we've gone is like a month without recording a podcast. And that's it. But we've been doing it since 2019.
Yeah.
And so,
crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, we also, it's 200 episodes, right?
Sorry.
So if you do one a week, 200 episodes, and we started doing 2 a week. And so obviously we've missed here and there, but like you said, it's like, it's always been a lifestyle thing. And I think you and I both believe also we have never done anything just because, we're just not those. I mean, what's going on?
Sorry,
like you're very fidgety.
I have a really bad bloody boogers. Like I've been sick and I have bloody boogers. So I was trying to get it out.
I mean, it's like I'm talking and all of a sudden it's like go, 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 go. And then the fidgety, the picking the nose, there's just a lot going on, and I'm usually the fidgety one.
I just picked one.
But I'm like losing my train of thought here.
Oh, now you get a taste of your own medicine.
Basically.
Okay, well, how do you like it?
I don't.
It's hard. Isn't it hard to focus when someone's being super fidgety?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
And look at me, like a good boy. I have my hands in my pockets.
But
and
now
I'm
I
just
feel like you get it. So now I have something to throw back at you. Great. Carry on. No, like I feel like I'm not a fidgety person. And so like I'll always like get on you for twisting your hair. Or like I'm like, you're being so fidgety right now. It's distracting. You're like, why is what I'm doing distracting you? It's got nothing to do with you. And I'm like, yeah, it does, because I'm looking at you and it's annoying as fuck and it's distracting. And you never got it because I'm not a fidgety person. And now you're distracted from my fidgety. So I just feel like...
But I also feel that if you zone... Like I honed in on it, right? Because it's just... It's like right in front of me.
Exactly.
And I also don't feel my best today. So I'm kind of like... I'm paying attention to it because I'm hanging on to my focus.
Well...
And you're distracting me.
Exactly. So...
But if I wasn't on a normal basis focusing on that...
Okay. Cool. Let's move on. So I just feel really validated right now.
Okay.
I want to
good.
Ride that high for a while.
Do it.
So going back to like what we were just talking about, like with the theme and stuff like that, and we've gone back and forth like, oh, should we just talk about relationships? Oh, should we just talk about travel? And I think one of the reasons too that, this podcast came about and we thought it would be so cool is because originally we had planned to take a year to travel the world. And we were like, oh, we can tell stories. And we were going to do YouTube too. We were going to do YouTube and the podcast. And so we're like, YouTube can like be a visual and it can show all the things. And the podcast can be these behind the scenes, the stories of what's going on. And we can give tips and blah, blah, blah. So it seemed like this like perfect like pairing that we're like, this is going to be epic,
Yeah.
And so that was going to be kind of a theme for the podcast.
No, totally. And I've always felt like, and Kim and I differ in this, and I'm always the one that will wake up on a random day and just be like, we have to change the podcast.
Oh my God.
Well, because I just believe that there are so many podcasts out there, and I've always wanted to have like something that people knew when they signed on, this is what they were getting. And whatever that was, it would be transparent and people would know. Like, but this has just been what you and I do, and so that's been the difference of our opinions within this podcast. So that's why there has been a lot more themes, and it's when Kim's humored me and a lot like we were going to interview like travel couples, and we realized like we don't like interviewing people.
I hate interviewing people.
It's the worst.
we're like, that would be so cool. So what I was getting to, though, is like the year of travel didn't even work because we went to New Zealand, and I'm going to circle back to the interview part. I'm coming back to that, but I just wanted to finish out that section because that was one of the main reasons we were starting the podcast. And then year of travel. We were so excited. Like we had saved and we were going to share all about that. And then we go to New Zealand. We brought the mic. We're doing podcasts in our vans from New Zealand. We're like, this is dynamite content. And then the pandemic happened. And so we came home, and we all know what happened next. Like we were home for years after that. So it's like the whole theme, the whole excitement of this sharing this year of travel kind of went kaplunk with the podcast. And so we're like, well, do we want to just stop doing it? But then we wanted to keep going. And that's kind of how we got into sharing our life more and that kind of stuff.
That was early on.
Yeah,
I mean, we were
2019. We left Oroville to go to New Zealand.
Yeah,
to start our year of travel.
That's true, but we started in the house in Oroville, and then we moved to Amanda Way, like in Chico, before we left. So it was like there was a solid amount of time that we were doing the podcast before we went on our year of travel.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot we lived in Amanda Way. You're right, but that was like the intention, right, to share our year of travel there. And so that happened. So we're like, okay, cool. Like now we have to pivot. We're not traveling for a year. We were gone for a month in New Zealand. But I do remember even like being in our van in New Zealand and being like, we got to do the podcast. And like we were like telling stories from like our living in a van in New Zealand. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I thought like, wow, like this is going to blow up. It's just like funny looking back now because then we came home. And then going back to, should we kind of toy with the idea of like interviewing people, right? Because most podcast hosts interview people. That's kind of the dynamic of a podcast. You're listening to interviews. And so we've interviewed quite a few people actually over the years. And it's not that we didn't like talking to people, because that's one thing. Like we love talking with people and like hearing people's stories and asking questions and just like shooting the shit. And that's always kind of the vibe we wanted to create, is like happy hour with us. Like we're just shooting the shit. But it's like, because we're not in person, because we're on Zoom, and it was never like the guests or the people. It was just always like, I just didn't feel like we thrived at that.
No, we never, like, it was always like you want to bring the guest in and you want to like hear about them and what they have to offer. So it felt like a lot of us asking questions, which then we would, prepare and kind of see like where we wanted to go with it, so that, like you said, we're not live. We're not just sitting down in a room. It is our podcast. And so we have to drive the ship, and we want people to learn about our guests. And so it was very like, so like, how do you feel about like what was your best travel story? Like, and then we would let them talk, and then it's like, cool. Okay. Like, what, and
sorry. It's
just a lot of stuff going on.
I'm sorry. I literally have bronchitis.
Okay.
It didn't feel authentic.
No.
And to us. And again, I think it's like anything. If you and I would have stuck with it, I think we would have been better at interviewing. I think maybe it would have been more flowy. And maybe we would have grown to like it. But I just, like, it never felt authentic. It was never something I, like, really looked forward to. I always just like shooting the shit with you, telling stories about whatever. Like, those are always my favorite episodes. And so it just never, like, we would get off the interview and, like, we'd end up talking. I'll never forget, we interviewed our friend Skip and Jazz, who we love, and we were talking about van life. And I felt like this is a great content for the listeners of, like, they're giving great insight to van life. We got off the actual interview and we ended up all talking for like another 2 hours, and we're like, dude, this is the shit that should have went on the episode. This is the real stuff.
Exactly.
But it almost feels like it didn't feel authentic.
No, it didn't. And I think we did that with multiple.
I know.
And I think the only interview that I've ever liked is Aaron and Adam's interview, which it was like we were planning their trip for them.
Yeah.
And like that was fun because it was a conversation, and it wasn't like we were asking them questions about their travels. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I think that's the biggest thing. And I mean, full transparency, we like to talk. Like, I don't want to ask somebody a question and sit and listen to them talk on the podcast. Like, I want to share.
Yeah. And I think you can't, because I think we did it both ways. We would, in the beginning, I think we were so nervous. So it's like we would have question. And we would like give the guests the questions too. And it was very kind of like, automated in that way. It didn't feel like a natural flow of a conversation. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, cool, screw the questions. Like, you and I will have an idea of what we want to talk about, but like, let's have it be more conversational, more natural. And like, we realized that that's how we like to do it, because then because honestly, I love asking people questions. I love listening. I love learning. Like, that's something that for me is like very natural. So I feel like I would be like a great podcast interviewer, but it just never
You
worked
like
out.
asking people questions to start conversations.
But I like listening too.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which
I really do.
I mean, if you think about it on our adventure trips, like you do a great job of like getting to know people, but you're also not just sitting there quiet. Like,
right.
You're
It's
talking. And so, right. And then, you also like trying to cram in getting to know people and also having conversations and getting points out within a time frame.
Right. So I think, and maybe it would be different if you were live with people. I've heard a lot of podcasters say like they do not do Zoom interviews because there's a delay. You're talking over each other. It just, I don't know. I didn't like it. We didn't like it. We're like, I don't know. Maybe in the future we'll do more. Maybe like, who knows? But
oh God, if people come over to our Denver podcast studio,
that would be amazing.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, like, because you're in person, it feels more fun. It feels conversational, yeah. So we went through that whole phase, and I just think it's just been such a journey that we've been on, and I mean, we just talked about even changing it not that long ago of like, oh, should we just like tell our story and like talk about relationships, because people always love hearing about our relationship and stuff, and we're like, oh, we should like not give relationship advice, but just share stories from our own relationship and blah blah blah, and like focus on that. But then we're like, no, like I don't want to just like talk about my relationship.
No.
Like,
and then Kim and Aaron After Dark.
See, that was about sex and relationships.
Yeah. And then we were gonna interview couples and like kind of. Yeah, like, I mean, we've had so many ideas. Yeah.
I think, too, it just goes to show, too, is like, just if you want to do something, like, just get started. You know, like, we literally bought a mic. We just got started in that little room in our Oroville house, and we closed the doors because it had carpet, and we just went in there, and we started telling stories, and it was just really fun, and we just got started, and yes, it's evolved, and yes, it's changed, and we've had different ideas, and maybe some of those things didn't stick, and then we went back, but I feel like you just get started, and then I think find your flow with it, but always come back to what feels true to you.
Totally.
And for me, if I'm going to do a podcast, I want it to be us getting on and telling stories and shooting the shit. And that's the kind of podcast I want to do. Those are the kinds of podcasts I like to listen to. That's what I like. And I would always say that to you. And I'm like, well, Bo and Stassi, who I love, they're a couple. Stassi was on Vanderpump Rules. And they just are like literally sharing their lives. They're sharing things about the relationship. They're sharing things that happened during the week. Now they're parents, so they're sharing parenthood. And it's like, I love just listening to them shoot the shit and tell stories. And you would be like, yeah, but they're like famous. So like,
yeah, Stassi, like you watched her when she was on Vanderpump.
I know.
Like, so you liked her as a person. She starts a podcast. This is now what she does.
Right.
So
that's
like,
what I mean is like, but
she makes money on her podcast. Like,
but that's the style of podcast I like. And I would, even though, yeah, obviously we're not freaking Bo and Stassi, but like anytime we've ever asked people, like, why do you like our podcast or what, like, it's always like when you guys are telling stories or like people will like write us and be like, oh my God, that was like so funny, blah, blah, blah. And it's always from some story. It's not if we're like, let me give you 3 tips to hack something, like, or like to be a healthcare traveler. Like, I don't want to talk about that. And I don't find that interesting.
I don't either.
And so I would always come back to like my gut of like, this is what I want to do. If we're going to do a podcast, this would be the style. And that can evolve as we evolve, as we grow. If we're traveling, if we're not, if we're like in every stage of our life, like we can continue to share aspects of our life, and the people who want to be a part of it can, the people who don't. But we also incorporated the Traveler Quick Tip, which people love because it's very specific to healthcare traveling and you can take that tip and run with it. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Okay.
It does. And I think it's the whole thing of just when you're trying to come up with content, right? And like you said, half the reason that we haven't been as consistent or have missed podcasts is because we're like, there's nothing to talk about. Yeah. So when you do have a theme, when you do have a through line to your podcast, like that's not an issue. You can plan ahead, you can write down topics, just like the Traveler Quick Tips. Like you could get an endless supply of stuff if you just did that all the time. You just find a topic in travel healthcare and like launch a 12-minute, 15-minute podcast. Like no big deal. Bing, bang, boom. Like it is what it is. But like when you're just shooting the shit off your life and like being like, do we have anything to share this week? Like, no. Well, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the only thing, because I do like you said, I like when we're telling stories. I like when something funny happens, like you falling off a scooter or some crazy travel tip or like something that happened behind the scenes or we miss a train or we do something like something
That's
funny.
That's why we need to do more fun shit, dude.
Okay.
But we did say like we want to go back and share some more fun stories we have so many stories from just like traveling we've been traveling for 11 years. Like we have so many like funny stories and like blunders. Is it blunder?
Blunders?
Like,
what are you, a pirate?
Like bloopers. Wait, what, a blunder. Like a mess up, a mishap.
Yeah.
You know? But anyways, okay. We can talk more about that later, but...
That's kind of interesting, though, like staying on that. I do think that was like... Excuse me?
Oh, my God.
So what, this is your podcast? Like, you can just share?
Well, because I didn't really want to get into that.
Well, you brought it up, buddy. It's almost like a court of law. Like,
quickly.
The defense prosecution brought it up, so now I get to cross-examine the witness.
Okay, Suits. Which we just finished and we're so sad about. I don't want to talk about it.
I can't. Anyway... No, I just think that's really cool because we were just thinking about all of this, and it's like the entirety of like our travel life, of like our first international trip and what we did, and like thinking back on the Italy cruise, the Mediterranean cruise we went on, and like how scared we were to like get off the boat, and like how we missed out on things, and like we were in the Spanish islands and like never even got off the boat. You know, it's like there's so many stories of like so many cool travel trips that we've done. And it's like, those have never come to light.
Yeah. And then we can start sharing them. I think that's fucking awesome. Like, you know, there's so many fun things to share about. So we'll start intermingling some fun travel stories, even when we're not traveling currently because we're in West Virginia. Yeah.
So in the trend of how this podcast has gone, and we've had multiple ideas, at one point we have all of these pink and blue like Post-it notes in an Iron Man like Ziploc bag. And
what is that?
Okay, Sir Smokes a lot.
What's up, bronchitis?
So basically, when we were leaving Jacksonville, we had pulled all of our stuff out of storage, and we had it in the office and all the different bins that we had. And I found these questions, and I knew exactly what they were, but we've never looked at them because we did have a point where we're like, let's write down topics, and we'll just pull topics out of the bag, and we'll just answer them on the podcast.
Yeah.
We've never done it.
Not once.
We've never looked at these.
Nope.
I have no clue what are on these, and I found them last week.
Yeah.
And so we were like, dude, 200th episode, let's pull these out and see what we were even thinking about.
Yeah. So we have the bag. You can hear it here. And we were going to just, we literally haven't looked at these. So we were like, let's just pull out a couple and kind of see just for fun to like commemorate the 200th episode, which also I forgot to say, remember the phase we went through where we were doing video?
Oh my God, we're going to do a video podcast.
Which honestly, I would love because I listen to podcasts, but there are some I like to watch and I like giving an option, but it would take you like 8 hours to edit.
No, it would not.
It would take you so long because
be
you
an
wanted
hour.
to do a zoom in and a zoom out, and so it ended up.
No, I stopped doing that.
Well, it ended up taking so much longer that we were like, dude, this is too much. But
If
maybe
it
we'll
would-
bring that back.
If it would have just been us and not an interview, that would have been different. And so if we only do in-person interviews and we have our studio set up so the camera is in one location and we just shoot from there and I have multiple cameras, that's super easy.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I'm picking a blue card. Okay, like what does this even mean? Being secure with yourself?
Oh my God.
Like why? What's the context there?
Was it just topics like that we would talk
Yeah,
about?
maybe. Let me pull
So it's
another
not
one.
questions?
Just because we haven't actually even looked at this. So
Oh
I'm
my
not
God, this could be an epic disaster.
Yeah. It's never what you say, but how you say it.
Okay.
These were topics we could talk about.
Oh my
This
God.
is relationship.
That's a relationship thing. So we do believe in that.
100%.
Like it's never what you say, it's how you say it. And I do believe that there are so many people that do not know that tip
Yeah.
of just like thinking about that. Like you can pretty much say anything you want. It's how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how.
Yeah, we always
Right?
say that.
Yeah, like Kim could come at it a little bit softer instead of just like biting my head off over like something that I did. I mean, even if it's like if she wants me to take out the trash every single day, like it's how you say it. Hey, babe, like, you know what I'm saying? Instead of being like, why don't you ever take out the trash? You don't do anything around here.
Well, and we've realized, right, like that seems so common sense. I feel like we all kind of know that, but I think sometimes your tone gets away from you, right? And like we know that we're more effective with one another when we're softer and kinder, and like the way that we want to go about it and the way that we say it has way more value and power when we're doing it from a place of like softness than we are from a place of like annoyance and anger, right? Like it never goes anywhere.
Perfect. Draw another one.
What a great topic.
I mean, not a whole podcast worth.
No. Laugh. Be silly. Be flirty. This is so
Okay, these are you. These aren't me.
No,
That's not me. I did not write that.
Your handwriting.
Oh my God, it is mine. Where would I even come up with that?
Be silly and be flirty. You need to bring this back. I want you to flirt with me.
Wait.
Will you come tickle me?
So
like
these,
you used to in the
so
woods?
these are just in the woods, babe. When were we in the woods?
Remember you would tickle me in the woods?
No, it never happened.
For the video?
It never
Okay,
happened.
let's do one more. It's a pink one.
I think we should just keep going for a little bit until we get a good one.
This is, so basically I'm guessing that these were topics that we were going to do like for our podcast, but they all have to do with relationships.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Maybe this is when we are going to be a relationship podcast.
No, we just thought about that.
Okay. Reenact your partner when they are home alone. What do they do? What does that mean?
How would you even reenact them?
Yeah, like what would you do? Reenact your partner when
I
they
feel
are
like
home alone.
I feel like that's a lot easier for you to
It's like
reenact
me
what
just,
I
like,
do.
masturbating. Like, what?
What?
Like, how are you reenacting what your partner's doing?
Basically, reenact. Is that my handwriting?
Of course it is. They all are.
What? When did I do all of this?
Just doing your good work.
That's so insane to me. But I think, like, what is it that I think you do when you're home alone, and what is it that you think I do when I'm home alone?
I mean, I know what you do when you're home alone.
What's that?
You sleep in.
No, not necessarily, but okay.
You do. And then you like to get up and, like, have a coffee, watch a podcast or something, have some chill time, maybe go for a walk. I mean, go to the gym. Maybe. Eat a lot of bad food.
Yeah.
Drink a lot of scotch.
Yeah.
Watch football.
Movies.
Or movies about crime or war.
Not necessarily.
And then, like, do mushrooms. Basically, you just get, like, blasted. And then you just, like beat your meat.
Oh, my God. That's what you think I do.
Why are you blushing?
Well, because it's just insane.
Because you know exactly it's what you do.
No, it's just funny because it's like, it is funny to hear what you think. So you're in Florida and you just like are like, oh, what everybody's doing, and like that's what's like running through your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's exactly what you did.
No, really?
Well, obviously you worked and did a lot of other things, but I wasn't.
I got a lot done.
I know, I wasn't including the work part. I was just including more like a personal part.
Yeah, I think I just actually like, it's funny because we were talking about this. How do we incorporate more of when we are alone into our everyday life? Because you and I do everything together. Like, literally, like, are you hungry? When are we going to eat? Like, we should make something together. And like, do you want to cuddle? Let's watch TV. Like, if you're going to watch TV, then I don't feel motivated, so I'm not going to do it. Like, are you going to go to the gym? I don't know. Like, what are you? And it's like, that's how, like, what time are you waking up? Like, wake up. Like, I'm
twins.
up. And when you're home alone, you just kind of do your own thing. Like, I would literally work until I got, like, I'm not really feeling this anymore, and I would watch a movie.
What do you think I do?
You?
Yeah.
I think you wake up, you have your
Sorry.
You have your coffee quietly with your incense burning.
Aww.
And you either read or watch a podcast, and then you would, like, home alone. Like, it depends if it's a work day or if it's like.
It's like, yeah. What's the
if you don't have
context
anything
of
to
the
get done. I actually, if you didn't have anything to get that you wanted to get done,
yeah,
I don't really know what you would do. You would watch your shows.
I would go to Pilates. I'd get a coffee. I'd sit there and like read a book. Like
Listen
at the
to a
coffee
podcast.
shop. Yeah, listen to a podcast. Come home.
Make your lunch. Have a smoothie.
No, I would get something special for dinner, and then I would watch like Sex in the City or something fun and like drink wine.
Perfect. Why don't we do that on a more often?
Are you trying to get rid of me?
No, I'm saying like incorporating that into like our lives.
Because we're always together.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
what was that one?
I'm not even reading it.
Read it.
Finding yourself.
Oh, God. Was that my handwriting again?
They're all your handwriting.
I did not do all of these.
I hate to break it to you.
Okay, pass.
You were really feeling it. You were feeling really inspired to find yourself.
Okay.
I'll do one more.
Finding yourself?
Yeah, because maybe I'm going to go find myself by myself and pretend you're not here since you don't want to be around me anymore.
Never said that. Not one bit did I ever say that.
Friend.
Okay, go. Continue. Quicker, please.
What time are you going to go to bed today?
That's typically how it is.
Okay, last one. Oh, this is a good one to end on.
Okay.
What do you find the funniest about each other?
Oh, God.
Your handwriting. Okay, what do you find the funniest about me?
Okay. I think you do.
Think?
I know.
I don't even know.
I think you do have a very different way of viewing things, and like just sometimes you'll narrate things that you see in a way that I'm just wondering, like, how you even saw that, or like you'll get dramatic around a story or exaggerative, and it's like so hilarious, and like you're kind of like will turn into a little kid at times, like, and during commercials, and it's like you'll get wild, and I don't know, it's just funny. Like, it makes me laugh, like the way you tell stories, the drama behind it. It's the funniest.
When I pretend I'm a pig.
Okay. Okay, this is getting weird.
Why is that weird? What?
You're just making pig noises, and like
Last night I was making pig noises. It's relevant. And
yeah,
I was
because
pretending
we ate
I was
a whole
Pepe Pig.
thing of ice cream and felt sick after.
That was disgusting.
We had ice cream for dinner.
Yeah, blizzards to be exact. That was so good.
It was good.
I find I don't know. I find like so many things about you funny. Like
my weight.
What? Okay, that was weird. Like, talk about weird. Like, your weight?
Mm-hmm.
I don't find your weight to be funny. Like, are you just feeling insecure right now? Or
Pretty
like,
much.
what the fuck was that? Okay, no, I don't find that funny. I just feel like you're just like a really weird dude. I just like, I don't know. I just
weird.
I just think you're, yeah.
Like funny haha or funny
like,
peculiar?
I don't feel like you're like, neither one of us are like comedians or like jokesters, like sit down, like ba-dum-bum, you know?
That was a couple too many. Badooch.
Yeah.
Too many.
What?
It's not ba-boom boom. It's badooch.
It's my drums and I can play them how I want. But like, I just feel like together the dynamic is funny. Like, you just like will say things that just like make me laugh. Like, and just like your thought on something, I'm just like, what? Like, I don't know. I just,
it's basically the same thing I said about you.
My favorite thing that you do is when you pretend you're a bull, and then like you go crazy. It's fun.
But that doesn't make any sense.
I love when you do it.
Kim puts her thumb on my forehead, and we've
And then
somehow made it funny to where like I try to like get her thumb off my forehead by just moving my head around, and she thinks it's hilarious. And so it basically has become a thing.
And I like when you tickle me in the woods.
I have never tickled you in the woods.
Well, maybe you should try.
I just tickled you once. I don't even want to
make me laugh.
I don't want to bring it up.
Cringy.
We were saying how competitive we were and how we like art. Oh my god, it makes
I think
me.
you were putting me in a headlock.
It makes me sick to even think about.
Like, ooh, I'm gonna get you.
It's like why I would think that is like showing a competitive dynamic.
Like, you're tickling me.
Like we even fake arm wrestled.
That's what it was. The infamous arm wrestle.
Oh.
Like, oh, I'm gonna get you. Like, we turn everything into a competition.
Oh god.
Like, what losers,
dude?
Like,
I guarantee you, we're in some file as like, you know how like American,
you know,
American Idol always plays people that can't sing, and
yeah.
it's like I guarantee you, they're like. There's probably an alert that goes off of like they've sent another one in, like let's all just like watch the real people we want to put on there, and like let's just see what they've thrown.
Or the blunders.
I mean, there's just so many. I'm wearing a pug shirt, and the pug shirt was too small for me.
The first one that we ever did, and this is where we'll end.
Yeah.
Because we've gone all over the place. But like, it was when we were our first ever travel contract, living in Georgia, in Atlanta. And we thought, oh my gosh, we got to get on this show. Like, we're going to be amazing. Like, TV gold. And we were naked wasted. I went and put on a pair of jean shorts and boots and some pink shirt and a cowboy hat. And what were you wearing? Like,
I have no idea.
Something ridiculous. And then we sat and put the camera on and talked about ourselves for 2 hours.
Basically.
And thought like that was going to get us on the show.
Yeah.
We were oh no, I was wearing a plaid shirt.
Yeah. And then the next one we did.
How were we trying to be country?
I don't know. And the next.
I'm not even live in like country at
No,
all.
I know. And the next one we
We're in
did, we like
Georgia.
acted like we were coming up on the Amazing Race and we had just won the leg of it. And we jumped on the mat, and then I voice over like,
Hey, Phil.
you are team number 1, and we like celebrated, and then like we sat down and told why we should be on the show, and
Oh my god.
our thought process was if we arm wrestle and we're competitive.
Right, and then we were doing banter.
Oh, but it was fake banter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It wasn't even real. It was like we staged it. Oh my! I
The
kind of
next
want to
one
watch
we
that.
the next one we sent in was I sent in like drone footage of like all of our travels and how we've traveled the world, and come to find out all they want is a 30 megabyte, and,
Yeah.
and my video was 300 gigs. So I had to shrink it down into a thumbnail size, like nobody could see it, and like just for it to go.
What were we?
I was wearing a pug shirt and like
thinking?
hanging from a tree.
Oh no, that was in that was in Bellingham, and I think we're like oh no, that wasn't Bellingham. What was the ones that the one I think when you were like tickling me,
Pacifica.
we're personal trainers, and like our life is about like making other people like feel good about themselves, and like we want to like do something for us.
But we're healthcare travelers, and
We're embarrassing.
dude, it is cringe.
I would love to
Cringe.
find those videos and watch
I
them.
have them.
Can we
I just
watch
can't
them?
watch them.
I feel like I want to.
You watch them on your own time.
We should put a clip on Instagram.
There's a line.
We'll have to see.
I mean, our
It's funny
our
now.
Amazing Race videos on YouTube, like, but in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up cutting it, but it was basically why we should go on the Amazing Race and like all the travels we've done. I'd be very interested in watching that one.
Let's watch it. All right, I'm about to tinkle my pants.
Yeah.
Okay, well, happy 20th episode.
20th.
Or 200th episode. Thank you for listening and showing up every single week and being a part of this journey with us and supporting us. And we're just so grateful for everyone who's listened. And
Yeah, this
See
wouldn't
where
be
this puppy
this
goes.
wouldn't be possible if we were just on the mic listening to it ourselves. So thank you
No.
for coming back and listening to us rant and be crazy and allowing us all of our changes and different themes and things, and just like all the name changes and just basically going on this journey with us.
yeah. And yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Oh my God. Why don't you do one of your cool closings?
Gonna go tickle me in the woods.
Okay, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Tickle, tickle,
Okay.
tickle, tickle. It's an Elmo. Oh, you do that so well.
I know, we gotta go. You want to sign off and say anything
No.
while you pick your nose?
Love you.
Okay.